Death doesn't knock. It enters unannounced often when you're least expecting it. But what if the body already knows long before the final breath? Subtle signs begin to appear, quiet messages that something deeper is shifting. And yet most people ignore them until it's too late. In this video, we'll uncover 5 powerful signals that death could be approaching, signals grounded not in superstition, but in real physiological changes that many overlook. These aren't dramatic movie moments. They're quiet, precise, and deeply human. Whether for yourself or someone close to you, recognizing these early warnings can help you prepare mentally, emotionally, even spiritually. Don't skip ahead. Each insight connects to the next, revealing a bigger truth about life, mortality, and awareness. If time is short, speed up the video. But don't miss what could be the most important message you hear today. Let's explore what most people never talk about, but everyone deserves to know. Sign number 1. Sleep pattern changes. One of the earliest and most overlooked indicators that the body may be preparing for death is an unexpected and unexplained change in sleep behavior. This isn't about staying up too late scrolling through your phone or catching up on a new series. This is something deeper, something that seems to override your willpower and routine. Your body begins to act as if it's moving into a completely different mode of existence. Throughout life, we evolve from the constant sleeping patterns of infants to the more structured rhythms of adulthood. But near the end of life, that arc often begins to reverse. Without warning, someone might find themselves sleeping most of the day, 12, 14, even 16 hours, and still waking up tired. It's not laziness. It's not burnout. It's a biological shift. The body begins rationing its energy, redirecting it toward vital organs, and letting go of non-essential systems. Sleep becomes a refuge, a reset, and sometimes a warning. However, the opposite can also occur. In some individuals, rather than excessive sleep, they experience what doctors refer to as terminal agitation or restlessness. You might feel utterly exhausted, but lying down provides no relief. It's as if your mind refuses to let go, racing with thoughts and energy that don't match your physical state. This inner tension often reflects an unconscious urgency to finish unresolved tasks or connect with loved ones one final time. Even more curious is how this change in sleep disrupts your circadian rhythm, the internal clock that governs when you wake and when you sleep. People report being wide awake at 3:00 a.m. while struggling to stay conscious during the middle of the day. Your body seems to forget what time it is, and your usual patterns collapse without reason. Now everyone has occasional bad weeks. Maybe stress, travel, or diet affects your rest. But what we're talking about here is persistent. These sleep changes don't fade with rest or time. They linger for weeks and are often accompanied by other shifts, emotional, physical, even spiritual, that we'll explore later in this video. In fact, many times it's not the person themselves who notices the shift first, it's those around them. A loved one might mention, "You've been sleeping so much lately," or "You're awake at the strangest hours." These comments are easy to dismiss, but they shouldn't be. They may be your body's first real signal that something fundamental is changing on a cellular level. So if you, or someone close to you, has recently experienced long-lasting, unexplained changes in sleep patterns, especially if it's paired with other unusual symptoms, don't ignore it. This could be the first quiet knock of a truth most are unprepared to hear. Sign number 2. Sudden weight loss. While sleep changes might be the first signal, they're rarely the only one. The second major sign that the body could be preparing for its final phase is one that often gets misunderstood: sudden, unintentional weight loss. At first glance, It may even be welcomed. We live in a society that praises thinness and celebrates weight loss. So when someone begins to drop pounds without trying, it might seem like a positive development. But in the context of approaching death, this kind of weight loss is anything but healthy. I remember visiting an old friend who had always been full of life and appetite. He was the kind of person who believed every meal was a celebration, never too busy to cook, never too full for dessert. But something changed. Meals sat untouched. Favorite dishes barely sparked a reaction. He would smile politely, say he wasn't hungry, and that would be the end of it. Within weeks, his clothes started to hang off him. The vibrant man we knew began to look like a shadow of himself. What we were witnessing was not a diet success story. It was a condition known in medicine as cachexia, a form of metabolic deterioration that signals the body is slowly shutting down. This isn't the kind of weight loss that results from cutting calories or walking more. It's systemic. The body begins breaking down muscle and fat at a rapid rate, not because it wants to, but because it's no longer prioritizing digestion and nourishment. Simply put, the internal systems are reallocating energy to the absolute essentials, the heart, lungs, and brain. The digestive system is one of the most energy-intensive systems in the body. It takes up a significant portion of our daily energy to process food, absorb nutrients, and eliminate waste. As death approaches, the body begins turning off the lights in rooms it no longer uses. Appetite fades, digestion slows, and even the sense of taste begins to shift. Foods that were once delicious can taste dull, bitter, or strange. Water can begin to have a metallic taste. Nothing feels right anymore, and no craving can override the change. To add to the confusion, there are times when a dying person may suddenly eat again, and families often take this as a hopeful sign. They're eating again. It must be a good thing, we say. But in most cases, these are brief bursts of energy, part of a fluctuating decline rather than a turnaround. They don't last, and often the appetite fades again quickly. What makes this kind of weight loss different from normal fluctuations is that it comes without effort. There's no calorie counting, no gym sessions, no conscious goal. It just happens. It's visible in the face, in the collarbones, in the hands. Rings start to slip off fingers, sleeves become too loose, and along with this physical shift comes fatigue, weakness, and a growing indifference to food altogether. This symptom often becomes noticeable around 2 to 4 months before death, and it doesn't stabilize unless there is a medical intervention, which even then may not reverse it. It's one of the most telling physical indicators that the body is preparing for a final transition. So if someone close to you has begun losing weight without trying, paired with a persistent loss of appetite and aversion to foods they once loved, this isn't just aging, and it isn't just stress. It may be the body's way of quietly letting go. That's why this is the second powerful sign that death may be drawing near. Sign number 3, mental and emotional detachment. To truly grasp what may be happening in the final stretch of life, you need to recognize a sign that is often misread and painfully misunderstood, especially by those closest to the person going through it. This third sign doesn't show up in lab results or physical exams. Instead, it quietly unfolds in the mind and emotions. And while it may be subtle at first, its effects can be profound. It's a form of quiet retreat, not from laziness or sadness, but from the weight of the world itself. The person begins to mentally and emotionally step away from the details of daily life. Tasks that once felt urgent, the bills, the phone calls, the appointments, suddenly seem unimportant even irrelevant. Long-held grudges or ambitions lose their grip. It can feel unsettling to watch, especially if you don't know what's really going on. Many families mistake this change for depression, confusion, or giving up. But what's actually occurring is a deeply intuitive shift. The mind, sensing that the body is winding down, begins preparing for detachment from the physical world. It's a natural psychological transition, almost like an internal countdown, where the person begins to loosen their ties to this life and everything in it. Neurologically, something fascinating happens. Brain activity shifts in areas responsible for social obligations and everyday stress. Chemical changes reduce feelings of anxiety or emotional overwhelm. It's as though the mind is gently dimming the lights in the theater of life, making it easier to exit when the moment comes. You may notice someone becoming unusually reflective, speaking about life in more abstract or spiritual terms. Even those who never spoke about faith or the afterlife may suddenly express a desire to talk about meaning, legacy, or people who have already passed. Some even report seeing or speaking to deceased loved ones, an experience that's more common than many realize. And then, there's something doctors call terminal lucidity, a strange and beautiful moment near the end, where someone who has been distant or confused suddenly becomes completely clear. Their eyes light up. Their voice returns to normal. They remember names, share thoughts, and for a few hours or a day, it's as if their old self returns. Families are often filled with hope, thinking recovery has begun. But this clarity, as miraculous as it feels, is often the final surge of energy before the body lets go. What makes this sign particularly tricky is how easily it can be mistaken for emotional problems, especially because it often appears just a month or two before death, when someone may still look physically stable. Loved ones may feel angry or heartbroken, wondering why the person isn't trying harder or fighting back. But this isn't weakness. It's not surrender. It's the body and mind following an ancient pattern of release, a compassionate process that eases the transition by gently dimming emotional attachment. So if someone you love has recently started to drift away from daily concerns, lost interest in future plans, or has shown sudden changes in how they think or feel, don't brush it off. This could be the third unmistakable signal that time is growing shorter. And if you're finding these insights helpful, take a moment to subscribe to the channel. Because learning to recognize these signs isn't just about preparing for the end. It's about understanding how to live more fully in the time we have. Together, we explore the truths that most people avoid, and that clarity can change everything. Sign number 4. Physical changes in appearance and breathing. There comes a point when the body stops whispering and begins to speak with unmistakable signs. Changes so visible, so profound, that they can no longer be ignored. The fourth sign that the body may be nearing its final chapter is one of the most physically apparent, yet often misunderstood until the very end. It shows up not in blood tests or hospital scans, but in the mirror, in the feel of a hand, or in the rhythm of a breath. It is the body's quiet way of saying, "I'm beginning to let go." When energy becomes limited, the body instinctively knows how to prioritize. Survival no longer means maintaining everything. It means focusing only on what's essential. And to do that, the body begins to reroute its most precious resource, blood. Normally, your circulatory system keeps blood flowing evenly throughout your entire body, warming your fingers and toes, delivering oxygen to every cell. But as the end draws near, it begins a remarkable act of triage. Blood is pulled inward, away from the extremities, and toward the vital organs, your brain, heart, and lungs. One of the first physical signs of this shift is a striking change in skin tone and texture. Known medically as mottling, this appears as blotchy patches of purplish, bluish, or reddish discoloration, often beginning at the feet or hands. It's not a bruise, and it's not random. It's a visible clue that your body is retreating from its outer edges to protect its core. You may also notice that the hands and feet become unusually cold, not just from external temperature, but from internal reallocation. The warmth that once radiated to your skin is now being reserved for deeper, more critical tasks. But temperature and color aren't the only changes. Breathing begins to follow a different rhythm, one that can be alarming if you've never seen it before. A pattern called Cheney-Stokes respiration may develop. Breaths come in cycles, first growing deeper and faster, then slower and shallower, sometimes pausing altogether for several seconds. Then the cycle begins again. For loved ones, it can be terrifying, but it's not necessarily painful. What's happening is that the brain's command center for breathing is losing precision and control, and the pattern reflects the body's gradual surrender of that function. Even your fingernails and nail beds begin to tell the story. They may take on a bluish hue, grow pale, or appear almost glassy. The skin around them may start to look thin, wax-like, or slightly translucent. These are not minor cosmetic changes. They are signals that blood and oxygen, life's carriers, are no longer flowing to those areas with regularity. What you're seeing on the surface mirrors a profound shift taking place within, unlike earlier signs which can slowly emerge over weeks or even months. These physical markers tend to appear in the final days or weeks. They represent the closing stages of the body's preparation, where energy is spent with utmost precision. Nothing is wasted. Every function is evaluated for necessity, and anything non-essential is allowed to gently power down. There's a strange kind of wisdom in this process, one that's easy to miss if you're only looking through the lens of fear or loss. But if you step back, you'll see a biological intelligence at work. The body doesn't panic. It doesn't fight recklessly. It adapts with clarity, with grace, and with a kind of order that reminds us just how miraculous this vessel really is. So if you've observed these changes in yourself, or in someone you deeply care about, the shift in skin tone, the cooling of extremities, the irregular breathing patterns, or nail discoloration, know that this could be sign number 4. It's the body's sacred language in its final act of conservation. And though difficult to witness, it holds a kind of quiet dignity we too often overlook. The 5th sign, the body's final communications. There's one last sign that completes this journey, perhaps the most profound, yet also the most easily missed. It doesn't show up on scans or charts. It doesn't always make sense to those watching. But to those who pay attention, this final sign is unmistakable. It's the body's way of communicating in its last quiet hours, and it may be the most intimate form of expression we'll ever witness. Take a deep breath and bring to mind the last time you were beside someone in their final days. Maybe they didn't speak much. Maybe they couldn't. But still, something felt different beyond the weight loss, beyond the slow breathing. Perhaps there was a subtle shift in the air, a certain smell you couldn't quite name, sounds that felt unfamiliar, or movements that didn't follow any clear logic. These aren't random or meaningless. They are the body's final attempts to communicate, each one part of a carefully orchestrated process as life winds down. One of the first clues often comes through scent, not an unwashed smell or something you'd associate with illness, but a specific chemical-like aroma. It arises as organs like the liver and kidneys begin to lose their ability to filter waste the way they once did. These shifts in internal chemistry give rise to odors that are new, often faint, but unmistakable to those who've witnessed this stage more than once. Then come the sounds. The so-called death rattle, a deep, gurgling noise in the throat, can be one of the most unsettling things for loved ones to hear. It happens when a person is no longer able to clear fluids from the back of the throat or lungs. To the untrained ear, it may sound like suffering. But here's what's important to understand: it is not painful. The person is not choking. Their body is simply no longer prioritizing the effort to clear these secretions. It's part of the shift from survival to surrender. Movements can follow. A hand reaching out towards something invisible, fingers plucking at bedsheets, eyes tracking things no one else sees. These are not hallucinations in the medical sense, nor are they completely random muscle spasms. They are part of the brain's gradual departure sparked by altered oxygen levels and fading electrical signals. Some interpret them as signs of the soul preparing to leave. Others see them as the final flickers of consciousness navigating the threshold between here and beyond. What's truly extraordinary is the predictability of the shutdown. The body doesn't collapse all at once. It follows a sequence. Digestion often halts first. Then the kidneys slow. The lungs and heart carry on until the very last moments. And the brain, despite outward appearances, remains aware far longer than we used to believe. In many cases, hearing is the last sense to fade. That's why nurses and hospice workers encourage families to continue speaking to their loved ones gently and lovingly, even if they can no longer respond. They may still hear you. Your words might be the last thread connecting them to this life. There's even evidence to suggest that people can delay death for a brief time, waiting for a beloved family member to arrive or holding on until after a significant date. These moments feel miraculous, but they reflect something deeply human: the will to remain until something feels complete. Recognizing these final signals isn't about fear. It's about presence. It's about understanding that just as birth has stages, labor, delivery, first breath, so does death. It has rhythm. It has form. And when we learn to listen, these quiet signs become a gift. They guide us in knowing when to gather loved ones, when to stop pushing for recovery, when to simply sit in stillness and offer comfort. So if you've observed these signs, strange odors, shifting breath, unusual gestures, or moments of unexpected clarity, you've witnessed something sacred. This is the fifth and final sign that a life may be nearing its end. And though heartbreaking, it carries a powerful reminder that even in its last acts, the body continues to speak with dignity, with intelligence, and with grace. This video explored the 5 subtle yet powerful signs that the body may be approaching the end of life, from shifts in sleep and appetite to changes in breathing awareness and physical appearance. Understanding these signs isn't about fear. It's about recognizing the intelligence of the body and honoring the process of transition with clarity and compassion. Thank you for watching. If this message helped you see life or death with new understanding, leave a comment and share your thoughts. We'd love to hear your story. And if you want more timeless insights on the human experience, emotional resilience, and Stoic wisdom, make sure to subscribe to the channel and join us on this path of awareness.